Dominic Bradley, and I'm the SDLP Assembly Member for the constituency of Newry and Armagh, and I'm also spokesperson for the party on education and the Irish language and policing.
Quite a wide brief.
It certainly is. It keeps me busy.
Well, let's talk about education, though. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing education in Northern Ireland at the moment?
Well, as we sit here at this particular time, we're in the middle of the budget debate, and I think the biggest challenge facing education at the moment is the resource challenge. Education has taken a huge hit in this particular budget, and if you look at the reductions to the aggregated schools budget, which is really that part of the budget which deals with the real frontline services which take place in the classroom, the provision of teachers and classroom assistants. That aggregated schools budget has taken a massive hit, I think in the region of 200 million over the 4 years, and that is going to mean huge job losses in teaching. One of the teachers' unions has estimated at 5,000 jobs. The Minister in response says that is a guesstimate, but other managerial bodies like the CCMS confirm that they agree with the teachers' unions that the job losses are somewhere in the region of 5,000 jobs. So I mean, that's going to have a huge effect on education. It's going to have severe effect on the teacher-pupil ratio. It's going to mean that there's less one-to-one contact between teacher and pupils in the classroom. That's going to impact on literacy and numeracy standards. So I think the resources are the biggest challenge facing us, not only the actual aggregated schools budget, but the capital budget has been hugely reduced, and the Minister to help the aggregated schools budget is moving a further 40 million from capital to revenue. So that means we are not going to see any new schools in Northern Ireland for the foreseeable future, apart from those that have already been committed to. And we already have a backlog of £300 million in maintenance. So our school estate is going to deteriorate over the budgetary period and beyond. So we often hear the desire expressed by the Minister and others that we should have a world-class education system here in Northern Ireland. With the schools estate that is gradually getting worse, and with the teaching profession that's going to be devastated by these budgetary cuts, it's going to be very difficult for us to achieve that world-class status without the resources that we need to do that with.
But given that we have to work in the current financial context, how would you manage the economic situation in education then?
Well, first of all, I think we have to face up to the reality of the situation. In recent answers that the Minister has given in the Assembly chamber, she seems to be of the opinion that there's 840 million floating around the executive table that hasn't yet been allocated, but unfortunately the Minister for Finance doesn't agree with that. There was a potential 1.6 million of revenue that could be raised. The Finance Minister tells us that 842 million of that, the figure mentioned by the Minister, has already been allocated in this budget, and the remainder of that, the difference between that 842 million and the 1.6 billion, has not been realised and isn't available for bidding by departments at this particular time. So I think the Minister needs to face up to the situation that she's in, and we need to begin to reshape the education budget so that we actually do our best to prevent frontline services. It's one thing talking about it and saying that it's a goal, but that needs to be followed up by action, which puts that goal, makes that goal a reality.
How would you reshape it? What action would you take?
Well, I think we need to look at, we don't as yet, we haven't seen as yet how the Minister intends to spend the other monies within the budget. And we need to be able to see spending plans. And I think when we see those spending plans, we need to look at, what is absolutely necessary and what is not. And I think we need to funnel every possible resource within the education budget to the front line and mitigate the effects of the present cuts to as great an extent as possible. In the longer term, we obviously have to look at the school's estate and how we can save money on that. We have 40,000 extra places within the school's estate which we don't actually need. That's costing us money year on year, money which, as I said earlier, we're in dire need of for actual frontline services. So I think we have to take a more strategic approach and see, where we can make actual savings in our management of the school's estate.
Beyond the economic implications, how big a contribution do you think shared and integrated education could make to a cohesive and peaceful society?
Well, I think there is a potential for quite a large degree of saving from the point of view of greater sharing and greater integration. And there are many opportunities which have been missed in the past, and all of the educational partners, the transfers, the CCMS and the education and library boards have said that they are in favour of sharing, and the CCMS and the transfers have talked about joint faith schools, and I think we should, it's time for us to see some of those desires put into practice. I think, in Northern Ireland, given the type of recent background that we've had, it would send out a very strong message to the community at large if we were to see some of these proposals put into practice. I think there is potential for sharing and greater sharing. The earlier learning communities have begun that particular journey, and I think they have been very successful from the point of view of sharing personnel and ensuring that the curriculum is managed in the most cost-effective way possible. And I mean that can be done from the point of view of the physical buildings as well. And I think where there are new buildings planned, that it's very sensible to look at the situation on an area basis, and see what's required, not just by one particular sector, but by other sectors, and to explore the extent that all sectors can be accommodated within any new proposal that's coming forward.
But at the moment, we're funding these different sectors with a restricted budget. I mean, what do you think of the idea that public funding should only go to schools which are demonstrably open to all faiths and none, instead of public money going to single faith schools?
Well, I mean, from our own party point of view, our policy is very clearly that we support parental choice, whether it's for integrated, controlled, maintained or Irish medium. And I do recognise that there are cost implications to that particular policy, but I think it is possible to manage it in such a way to control those cost implications and to make the provision of choice much more cost effective than it is at the moment. And we have spoken to various education partners, and they have said that they are not averse to sharing, to integrating school services to a greater extent in the future. I don't think we are going to achieve the goal of greater integration or greater sharing by threatening any particular sector, any particular group. If we're going to be successful, we need to encourage it on the basis of the willingness of partners to participate, rather than threatening any particular sector or group with withdrawal of funds. I think that the result of that would be counterproductive. It would mean possibly that sectors would retreat into their own silos, and the goals of integration and sharing would then be much more difficult to achieve.
But we're approaching Assembly elections, and you've talked about parental choice, but how important is it to your party, as you're drawing up the manifesto and a campaign, that survey after survey shows that a majority of parents actually would like to see more integrated schools here?
Yeah, well, as I have outlined to you already, our party policy is to facilitate parental choice to the greatest extent possible, and we would certainly respond to parental desires to have a particular form of education, as I said, whether it's integrated, Catholic, maintained, controlled, or Irish medium. But I also pointed out earlier on that it's possible to do that in a planned way, and to plan the school's estate in such a way that we can provide that choice in a cost-effective way. It does mean that there needs to be a willingness from all the partners to participate in that. They have said that they are willing to do that, but we need to see that willingness put into practice in the form of projects that come forward in the future.
Can I take you back to your own school days now? Do you have any particular outstanding memory of that time?
Well, my school days were probably longer than most people's, because having been to school until the age of 18, after college days I returned to school as a teacher, and I taught for 25 years, so I've rather a long experience of school days. But I suppose when I look back on my school days, I think of the period I spent at primary school, from probably it would have been age 7 to 11, when I went to the local boys' primary school in Besbrook, St Malachy's Boys' Primary School. It was a very old-fashioned school with an open fire and dip inkwells. So there was a slight sort of Victorian tinge to it. That type of school experience with sort of patriarchal school headmaster, or master as he was called. It has gone from Northern Ireland now, but it's an experience that I quite enjoyed, because I think the education that we got at that particular time was very solid and very thorough, so that when we left primary school we were very well prepared for post-primary education. So that
Do you remember being
stands out
happy
in my
though
mind.
at that school? Do you remember being happy at that school?
I do. I remember being unhappy at it initially, because I was in a class in which the teacher was a bit of a driver. However, later on when I joined the headmaster's class, he was a bit more relaxed, a bit more laid back, and allowed people to learn at their own rate and pace, and to explore particular areas of the curriculum that they were interested in. And I found that much more rewarding, much more enjoyable, and I was much more content under that type of regime.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.